Hi, my name is Alan Resnick, and you're listening to WNYU 89.1 FM.
And this is the New Afternoon Show. This is being pre-recorded on Monday, April 13th, 2020. We have Alan joining us over Zoom. Where are you coming from?
I'm in Los Angeles.
How's the sort of quarantine situation over there? Does it feel claustrophobic?
No, and I've heard a lot of people say things like this during this quarantine where they feel guilty that they're enjoying it. It is perfectly suited to the kind of lifestyle I would prefer to be living. I take, the idea that all my plans have been canceled and I don't have to stress out about any future plans feels very good. I mean, I do feel guilty about that. It's also, LA is really, really pleasant right now. A lot of people have been commenting on how the air quality has improved dramatically. It's also been raining a lot, so everything is really green, and it's I just feel like I'm in a cabin, and I should be focusing on being productive, but I can't at all.
Do you find that this is stimulating your creativity at all, or are you just...
No.
Wow.
Absolutely not. When this started, I think a lot of art people were like, "Oh, this will be great for my creativity." I'm sure it is for a lot of people, but I sit down to do work every day and think creatively, and there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with my brain. I can't think, and so everything I say right now might sound stupid.
I mean, so far you're in the clear.
Okay, good.
I think we mostly deal with a lot of musicians at WNYU, mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of them are reliant on studio bookings and equipment that exists outside of their means. Are you facing a similar sort of situation?
I thankfully, my favorite kind of video, I do mostly video work. My favorite kind of production is me alone with a camera, which is how I got interested in video in college, from video art assignments. I would go into the woods by myself with a camera, and I found that very creatively fulfilling. And then as I started to work more collaboratively and professionally, bigger crews, bigger teams of people, that's still very fun, but I always missed that act of just going alone with a camera and setting it up on a tripod. And luckily, right before this happened, I, just bought some of the camera production equipment that I just needed, this is it's stupid, but I just never had a good tripod and things like that. So I recently got kind of everything I would need to make low budget stuff by myself. And so I am starting to feel like the beginnings of being creative. I have some projects that I've designed for myself, which is okay, I can go into my backyard and film something. And it is funny to see a lot of people now forced to make videos alone. There's so many front facing camera videos that people are making. Yeah,
I think all of the hi-fi productions seem like they've gotten decidedly lower fi as time has gone on. Now, when you went to college at SUNY Purchase, correct?
Yes.
Were you involved at all, or did you travel down to the city a lot for any sort of art gatherings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the best thing about Purchase, which is such a strange state school, not very well funded state school that was very the school itself was a weird prison in the woods. It was designed by a architect who designed prisons, so it actually just felt kind of crazy, but it was so close to New York that I would go to look at museums and art galleries all the time, and that had a huge influence on me.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I'm coming at you from Westchester County.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And for those of you in the New York area that have not seen any of the SUNY schools, they all look like prisons.
It's all brick.
There, yeah. What would you say the biggest difference between sort of New York at that time and maybe Baltimore or LA were, either in your experience or at the time or currently?
Well, I mean, New York has always, at least in my lifetime, has always been extremely different from Baltimore. Baltimore is a very small city. And there was always, and I always had this idea that LA and New York were two big hubs of fine art in America. When I would go to Chelsea and look at art galleries, I saw so many strange video installations and just crazy stuff. And when I moved to LA, I was like trying to find it. I couldn't find it. It was a lot of art I didn't like, and I don't actually think that's a difference. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't think it's a difference between New York and LA. When I go to New York now, I also can't find any art I like. I mean, it's not bad. There's just way more sellable paintings. Like in Chelsea, it's every show is a painting show, which is fine if you like paintings. And I don't not like paintings, but I also prefer strange, more comedic, weird video art, which there used to be a lot of, and now that kind of thing seems hard to find. And in Baltimore, there's a very DIY art scene, which is more experimental and weird and interesting, which kind of feels more similar to the stuff I was looking at Chelsea when I was in school.
I know you've been involved in some capacity with some of the musicians coming out of Baltimore. I know you've directed music videos for Lower Dens and Dan Deacon. Were you at all involved with some of those artists that were budding around New York at the time that you were in Purchase?
No, I mean, I was, when I was at Purchase, I was just being exposed to a lot of weird music, and I didn't know anything, I guess. I wasn't like a music person necessarily, but a lot of the Baltimore musicians went to Purchase. A lot of those people met either at Purchase or just through being in the music scene then. So the group Wham City was, a lot of those people went to Purchase and were older than me. Like I was kind of entering Purchase as like Dan Deacon was leaving Purchase, and they were all moving to Baltimore as I was kind of graduating from college. So I did meet a lot of those people. I knew them tangentially at school, and I met a lot of them after, just because there was this Purchase community.
Your art also doesn't, while you are a Baltimore-based artist, as so the tagline has been sort of put on, your art exists mostly as a fixture of the internet. It's kind of locationless. How do you feel about that sort of push since the time you've been to Purchase, in regards to things like internet art and sort of genres and collectives of artists that are locationless?
You got cut off. Can you say the last part again?
Sorry. Since I think that time, since sort of the 2010s have emerged, a lot of art collectives and art genres seem to be locationless. Their location is the internet. How do you interact with these sort of classifications, and do you think that they influence your sort of mixed media at all? I don't know. When I was in school, when I was in college, it was kind of the beginning of YouTube, and I remember people I knew were posting really stupid things on YouTube and getting popular from it. And it was just a very exciting thing, especially because going to an art school, it's like the traditional like route of going into a gallery seemed pretty hard to break into if you weren't already known or kind of wealthy. So the internet was extremely exciting, and it's still, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question in
in a interesting way, but it's just another it's just another place to put things. It's a wonderful it's when the internet started, it was there was not the internet, but being able to upload art to the internet that anyone could see. There was this promise of democratization where you didn't need to be rich to do it. You didn't need a ton of equipment to do it. Anyone could do it. And that definitely seems to be the case. Like, that's how it's played out. So I think it makes total sense that there are a lot of people who are kind of collaborating with people the way I was in a location like Baltimore online.
Do you think that the internet will, some people have sort of like an apocalyptic vision that the internet will replace a lot of these sort of fixtures of art? There will be no more galleries or concerts. I think Grimes had made some public comment about there being no more, like the 2000 millennia will have no more concerts. Do you, as someone who works with the internet as an art form, do you find yourself how do you find yourself interfacing with these ideologies?
I don't agree with the premise. I mean, like, I think this quarantine situation is a good way of highlighting the fact that people really, really value real life experiences, or at least half of us do. I mean, like I was saying, I love not going to a show, or I love canceling plans to go to a show, even though I know every time I go to the show, I like it. There's basically, introverts, extroverts, or however you want to explain it. But there's half of us who are fine to stay at home and do everything digitally. I would be totally fine if, everything was happening virtually and digitally. But I think there's a lot of people who really want to go out and see people. I definitely live in both worlds, where I'm a performing artist who puts on live shows, and I value that experience. But I'm also someone who likes to work by myself, work alone in a room and then put something online. And I've gotten so much. I've gotten a lot from both. I've gotten a lot from showing work in public and meeting people, and I've gotten a lot from just uploading a video to a website anonymously and seeing the reaction it got. And I think both are valid, and yeah, I don't think either is going to overtake the other. I think they coexist.
Speaking of internet reactions, how do you feel about sort of people who pick apart and try to create a narrative out of your art forms or art projects? Do you think they're doing any sort of disservice, or do you encourage that, or what are your feelings on that?
I think it's the best possible reaction I could hope for. And I think a lot of artists, the dream would be that people engage with your art so thoroughly that they're coming up with theories about it, and they're talking to people about it, and they're making their own content about it. So I really, really appreciate it. I mean, it's a conversation with the viewer, or with the people who are doing that, because I am, and the team who I work with, when we're making a project, we know that there's a certain group of people who are going to really watch it. They're going to really look for all the hidden meanings and things. So we like to play with that idea and put things in there for them, and make sure that it's actually a satisfying experience to delve that deeply into something.
Of the sort of massive mixed media sort of A/B projects that you've worked on, which one has been your personal favorite in terms of the reaction that it's gotten?
Well, they go hand in hand, I think, but the reaction that unedited footage of a bear got was very surprising. It was something that, like, as a group, we all hoped would happen when we were making it. Our ideal reaction would be that it would surprise people who were watching it at 4 a.m. and we hit all these things online, and we hit all these things in the video that we were like, maybe in our wildest dreams, people will go look at this and take the time to find these things. And then we were very, very surprised that they did. So that one was the most surprising. The one that was the most like enjoyable or most fun was the one we did after that, which was This House Has People in It. And it was more fun because we kind of knew that audience would come back a second time and find that stuff. So we put more of an effort into hiding more things and developing more things. And it was just a very fun project because we rigged a house, just this suburban house we rigged with security cameras. We gave ourselves like way more time than we needed to shoot it. And we just spent a week basically like filming the craziest stuff we could think of. And it was, an extremely fun collaborative project.
For any uninitiated listeners, it's also a very extensive, it's probably one of the most extensive pieces in terms of just a sheer amount of content that I've sort of seen. Do you think that projects of that scale and volume are something that you sort of strive for when you're making an art piece, or is it on a piece-by-piece basis?
It depends on what the idea is. It depends on, it depends on the kernel of the idea. There's a lot of things that I've made where it's just like, this is a funny joke, and you don't need to read too much into it. It's just a comedy piece. And then there's pieces like that where there's a larger world or a larger idea or a larger story you want to hint at, and it makes sense for that piece, especially something like that where it's the core idea is pretty mysterious. So it makes sense for that to have all these hidden things in it. But I've made a lot of videos that are just on the surface what they are. There's nothing to really read into them, but because some of the videos there is stuff to read into, a lot of people will watch those videos and try to decode things that aren't there, and that's also enjoyable for me to witness, because when people do start analyzing some small video where there's not much to it, they find things that aren't there and they bring new meaning to it, and that's exciting for me to be like, oh, that idea actually does resonate with this, even though I wasn't thinking about it.
Moving on from the group project Atmosphere, what sort of drives your creativity with some of the CG and like sort of almost like shorts that you've made? A lot of that stuff feels a lot more like CGI or 3D animation oriented. What creatively do you think drove you towards that medium?
When I was younger and before I went to college, I just knew I liked to draw, and I was interested in 3D graphics. And when I went to school to purchase, I knew I wanted to make art. I didn't know what kind of art I wanted to make. And I took all kinds of, I took photography classes and video and sculpture and, 3D animation courses. And I never fully settled on anything. I liked all of it, and I'd never really let go of any of it. And so those shorter animation projects are just scratching an itch that I have. It's something I like to do. I still like to draw comics every once in a while, and I also like to perform comedy, but I'll get bored. I'll get bored with one, and I'll want to do the other one. So I'll make a narrative video, and then I'll want to make just a silly cartoon. But I can't imagine fully giving up any of them, even though it would always be, I always think how convenient it would be if I could just focus on one thing. I could get maybe better at it.
I mean, I don't want to put any answers in your mouth, but do you find that the different art forms and medias that you work within influence each other? Like, if you had to go without one, would that be a detriment to any of the other?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a good example of that is performing comedy live. There are so many ideas from performing live that I'll get in the spur of the moment, just improvising on stage or whatever it is, where I'm like, that was just a funny off the cuff joke, but it actually, maybe that would be a better video. Maybe that could be a cartoon. They definitely all influence each other. And I also end up usually combining a lot of the elements from one to the other. So a lot of my videos end up having at least some 3D element or CGI element, or it all comes together. I feel like I sound like a complete idiot right now because I'm like half awake.
When did you wake up today?
I don't remember. It's all all time has stopped making any sense.
This is fair. Now I'm going to edit this out. But are you okay with questions regarding themes within your art, or do you not want to sort of ruin mystique? Okay. So I notice within a lot of your art there are two themes that I've picked up on that I wanted to ask about. The first one being skin and flesh. In a lot of your like CG work, like with Gulliver or the weapon in May I Please Enter, even back to Live Forever As You Are. Skin seems to be a very like textural element in a lot of what you do. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I don't know why. I maybe I'm a pervert. I don't know. I know that is I know that is something that happens a lot in the things I make. There's always some weird skin. I think it might just be the quality of it. It's translucent and it's an interesting material, and it obviously when there's something wrong with skin, it makes everyone feel bad. So I think that's probably all it is.
And the other theme is that sort of baby blue that you sort of sneak into a lot of your projects. Is there any significance behind that?
A lot of that stuff is just things I don't like the skin thing. It's like things I don't realizing I'm doing, but then after I've done it enough times, it's like, oh, I guess I keep using this color, or I keep using this material, and then it kind of will force me to try to think about it more. And I don't have a good answer other than that's just a color I must like. And then, the way it's used in the videos gives it some new meaning.
Are you ever afraid of becoming, quote, the skin guy?
I of course.
Or that could be an honorific, though.
I guess I was thinking you were asking if I was worried about my skin, like if I was worried about having too much skin, like if I was becoming like the skin guy.
Oh.
Like people would see me and they're like, oh, that guy's like covered in way too much skin. So that's what I'm worried about.
Okay, gotcha. That is a very real fear. Do you think fear drives your art? And if so, what fears do?
Yes. I think a lot, when I watch so much, I think everybody watches so many videos, I see a million YouTube videos, I see a million TV shows and movies, and a lot of it I like, it's fine, or I don't think too much about it, but very rarely will I watch something and I'll be like, oh, that made me feel crazy, I'm going to keep thinking about that. And that is usually my goal when making something. Even comedy, my goal is to make something that if I saw it as a viewer, it would stick with me and I'd be like, wow, that was crazy. I want to tell someone about this weird thing I saw. And that inevitably ends up being something that would affect me. So it's something that could be that I would be afraid of. I think there's a cheap, I think that's why there's a cheap way of doing that would be like it's viscerally upsetting to see violence. So I think a lot of people just want to show violence because it gets people's attention. But maybe I'm just desensitized to it. I much prefer something that would scare me at like on a deeper level. And so usually when I'm coming up with something, I end up thinking like this would make me uncomfortable. This would make me feel kind of crazy.
Who are your favorite in specifically in regards to feeling uncomfortable? Who are your favorite artists or directors?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I initially was very influenced by video artists like Paul McCarthy and Mike Smith and Mike Kelly. There were, stranger artists. I'm not good at this question of influences, but my favorite kind of thing to see is a movie or a TV show where you're like, is this bad? Like you're watching a movie and you can't tell what the director is trying to do at first. You're like, I know they're doing something, and I can't tell if this is a good movie or a bad movie. I like that feeling, and because it makes me uneasy, it makes me feel unsafe. I think a movie that I always think about that I really love is the Nicolas Cage movie Vampire's Kiss. Mm-hmm. I can't remember who directed it off the top of my head, but a lot of the movie you're watching and you're like, this kind of feels like a poorly done movie, but then you're like, no, I think it's like actually really good. And that's just a very exciting feeling when I'm watching something.
What's the most unsettling real life experience you've had?
This isn't really unsettling, but it was a little weird. When I was younger, I was probably like 13. My mom took me to the doctor's office, and the elevator opened, and there was a glass eye on the ground. Someone's fake eye was just in the center of the elevator looking at me, and I was like really freaked out when I was a kid, and I was like, what is that? My mom explained, and I was like, I want to keep this. Like I get to pick this up and put it in my pocket. This is mine now. And my mom was like, no, you can't. And I just remember being like, this isn't fair, because my brother found a human skull once, and he brought it home.
Oh my God.
And she was like, yeah, well, that was like a big problem. Like my brother, I guess there was this old abandoned house in our town, and he went into the basement and he found a human skull, and he was like, oh, cool. You see him in movies, it's like a prop or something. So he's like, oh, cool, a skull. He brought it home, and my parents were like, what the hell is that? Like really freaked out. And, they had to call the police because it was obviously like evidence in a death.
Yeah.
But anyways, I thought if he got to bring home a skull, I should be able to pick up an eye off the elevator.
That seems like a perfectly reasonable equivalency.
Yeah, that's not an unsettling. It's not the most unsettling story, but it's the first thing I could think of.
Was that any sort of, if I'm remembering correctly, in the unedited footage, like ARG website game, there was like wasn't the head poking out of the floor of the basement of the house? Yeah, that was, but I don't know if there's a connection to that story, and I don't even remember if that was my idea, because there were a lot of collaborators on that. Dina Kelberman made that ARG, and Robbie Ratcliffe was a big part of that. I don't know whose idea it was. I just remember it was Robbie's head was the who we used. So I associate it with him. Do you want to quickly shout out all of your other AB Video Solutions collaborators?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's confusing, but my core group of collaborators are Robbie Ratcliffe, Ben O'Brien, Cricket Arison, and Dina Kelberman, but in various... We don't always collaborate on everything. Dina has done all of the ARGs and the websites associated with these projects. She's also co-written most of them, but she doesn't perform. The other three are comedic performers who are also in a group called Wham City Comedy. We've performed we've toured and performed for years. We all met in Baltimore. But yeah, that's the core group, and then we're always bringing in other people for various projects, and it's a great team.
Why do you do the voice?
Say that again.
Why do you do the voice?
What voice?
Gotcha. The sort of like I feel like a lot of the characters that you've put on have like a very sort of like I'm noticing that your normal speaking voice is not as upbeat and lively.
Every character I play has a different, personality. Hopefully you try to make them characters. They're not just
of course.
me.
Yes.
So I'm often playing characters. Even it's confusing because every character I play has pretty much been just called Alan.
Sure.
So but I do perform them differently. And also right now I'm like dying, so I sound weird.
Sure. What upcoming projects are you and or your collective working on that you're involved with?
I have some videos that I'm going to be shooting in my house while I'm locked in my house. Robbie Ratcliffe hosts a live streaming video game show on Adult Swim every Thursday, adultswim.com. And I'm a sidekick character on that. And we've been, streaming in from our house. Normally we do it in a studio, and that's very fun. There's a bunch of just various projects that are in the works, but everything is on hold right now. And it's not clear what will happen, or when things get back to normal, which project will move forward and how that will all shake down. But there's I'm definitely trying to keep busy.
Can you give any insight into what these house videos you're shooting are like? I just agreed to make a short video about video compression in codecs, like QuickTime, like ProRes. Yeah, H.264.
Yeah, so I'm going to make a video about all the different codecs you could use.
Gotcha. That sounds like something that is very exciting.
Can't wait.
Codecs are now the only way we can communicate.
It's true.
Are there any other projects or... Oh, actually, I had one other question for you before we wrap up. What music do you listen to? What sort of music do you find inspires you, and or what do you just like to listen to?
That's a good question. I can, I don't know. I'm always someone who I love music, but I've always been bad at finding or keeping track of the music I like. I know I like my friends' music. So, just shout out to some friends who make music. Jerry Paper is someone who I really enjoy their music. I made a music video for him. And Ed Schrader is one of my favorites. He's a Baltimore person. And Dan Deacon. There's a lot. But music that inspires me, I don't know. I will just let Spotify usually suggest things, and then I'll just like any, if I like something, I'll note it and put it in a playlist, and then it will suggest more things like that. And whenever I've played music that I've liked from Spotify, like in the car around other people, I always get made fun of. And I think it was Cricket said that my taste in music is like what a clown listens to in a car, and I think that's probably pretty accurate. It's a lot of like very obnoxious, silly music. Sounds like a circus is coming to town.
Can you give any specific example of a song that sounds like that?
I don't know. That's the problem. I don't keep track of the names.
Understandable.
Let me look.
We will be playing this music following the interview.
All right, maybe I'll try to send you something.
Sure.
I'll like take a look and I'll email you something.
Yeah, that works. Just this will play you out.
Great.
Do you interface at all with any of the music that I feel like, not that I personally do or don't, but I've seen people online associate like some of the art you've made with sort of like that post-ironic, post-internet, like James Ferraro, One O Tricks Point Never style of art music? Do you interface with that at all, or are you sort of outside of that?
I don't, and it's more just because I don't know anything about music.
Sure.
Yeah, I just don't know the first thing about it.
Who makes the music for the for both AB and your works?
A variety of friends who are extremely talented. You know, I already mentioned some. Jerry Paper did music for a video I did called "May It Please Enter." Ed Schrader, there's an Ed Schrader song in unedited footage of a bear, and there's a Dan Deacon's made some original music for that as well. And then we often work with our friend Jeff Graham, who's an extremely talented musician, and he's done a lot of the kind of pastiche, like whenever we need something to sound like something, we're like, we need this to kind of sound like a Rolling Stones song. He'll make a fake song and he'll always put funny lyrics to it. He's done some of our like group, like, you know, intro theme songs. And another guy from Baltimore, Drew Swinburne, has done a lot of music for us.
Who made the theme to Sculptor's Playground?
That's a guy named Jeremy Hyman, who he often plays with Dan Deacon. He's in all sorts of bands, and that was some of his solo music that, you know, he shared with me, and I was like, man, this is really awesome. Another guy, Andrew Bernstein, he made all the music in the Johnny Bubble short, who's also a really talented guy.
That was a very good short. I like that one a lot.
Oh, thank you.
My last question for you, my ultimatum. How do you feel about irony in art, and whether it's... I feel like a lot of what has been sort of classified as like the 2010s style of making artwork, the word irony gets thrown around a lot. How do you feel about that, and where do you think you stand in that sort of classification?
I don't think about it that much. I mean, I know what you're talking about, and I feel like in the, you know, early 2010s, I would just associate it with just like ironic Garfields. Was like the thing. It's just like, oh, Garfield. And I think that kind of wore itself out. I don't know. I think I try to make things that are like, I think a lot of the stuff I make maybe comes off as ironic when it's not. Or, you know, with something like unedited footage of a bear, part of the joke of it was that it took itself so seriously, and it was like in the context of a comedy network. So I think that maybe could be that is irony. But in reality, you know, we were just taking it very seriously. So, you know, I try not to think about it too much.
Sure. Where can people find you if they want to stay updated on more of what you're doing and to just sort of hear you blather about on the internet?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm on all the internet things. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram, just Alan Resnick. And I post everything I do to my website, alanresnick.info. And yeah, on Thursdays, I'm on my friend Robbie's video game show on adultswim.com. Thursdays at 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 o'clock Eastern.
Sure. And we'll have all of this information available on WNYU.org. If you go to the show playlist, it'll be in the ID3 tag for this interview. Is there anything else you want to say to the great people of New York City and its surrounding metropolitan areas?
Just to, stop, don't go outside. I'm sure everyone already knows, and I'm sure everyone's already being safe. It's a terrifying thing.
Yeah, I second that. Thank you, Alan. You're all listening to the new afternoon show. We're going to have some more music playing for you after this, notably, potentially, some circus clown music, weather permitting. If you want more information, you can email me at tom@wnyu.org or go to wnyu.org for more information.